Okay, good evening, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Sparta Township Planning Board. Thank you to those joining us here and online. For the record, this meeting is being held on February 18th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Sparta Township Municipal Building located at 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey, and the live stream can be viewed on YouTube at www.youtube.com/@SpartaTWP. Please note that adequate public notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. No new business will be conducted after 9:30 p.m., and the meeting will end promptly at 10. Let us begin with a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Aisha, would you please call the roll?
Christine Quinn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Michael Sylvester.
Here.
Ron Day.
Here.
Christine Dunbar.
Here.
Joan Furman.
Here.
Ernie Rackstad.
Here.
Brian Zimmerman.
Here.
Birgit Bogler.
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Jeanette Burke.
Here.
Chairwoman Celeste Luciano.
Here. Okay, and for the public who is joining us online, Christine Quinn is here on the phone with us, albeit not in the room, but she is present. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of minutes for January 21st, 2026. Eligible to vote are Deputy Mayor Michael Sylvester, Jeanette Burke, Ron Day, Christine Dunbar, Joan Furman, Celeste Luciano, Ernie Raggstad, Brian Zimmerman, and Birgit Bogler. I will open it up to the board for questions and comments on these minutes.
I have one. On page 3, after Mr. Porro listed all the classes, the next paragraph, last sentence, the board would proceed as it has in the past, interpreting its, I would put the word past practice in there as valid because we can't go backwards. But since we are going forward, I don't want it to be recognized as this is what we are doing going forward. We're just recognizing past practice.
I have no problem with that.
Can't hear you.
I said I have no problem with that.
Any other questions or comments on these minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a motion and second to approve the minutes as amended by Ms. Furman.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Michael Sylvester.
Yes.
Ron Day. Christine Dunbar.
Yes.
Joan Furman.
Yes.
Ernie Rackstad.
Yes.
Brian Zimmerman.
Yes.
Birgit Bogler.
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Jeanette Burke.
Yes.
Chairwoman Celeste Luciano.
Yes. Okay, January minutes are approved. We also have available to us, in front of us, the minor site plan subcommittee minutes for October through December of 2025. Eligible to vote would be Joan Furman, Brian Zimmerman, and Birgit Bogler. I believe, Ms. Furman, you had some comments?
Yeah, I wanted to go over it all, including the voting. Trying to think of where to begin here. We've had a great deal of difficulty in getting these minutes out since October. They've had maybe 10, 15 revisions, and every time it comes back, something else changes. And another thing changes, lines change, votes change, everything. So we finally are, I think, almost at the point from January to December in approving that, but those changes are not reflected in the October or November minutes. So I would like to vote to take them off the table completely, like just not approve them, not have them, not show them, because they're going to be contradictory to the January through December minutes. Unless they go back and get changed to reflect what's in the January through December minutes, and then we can approve them at another time. And I'd like, the rest of the people who are on the subcommittee to weigh in on that.
If I could, I would suggest you carry it. You have an obligation to have minutes that reflect. So if there are concerns, we should just address it. I don't believe we should leave it blank, so if there's, let's pass what we can, and maybe just carry whatever months Joan needs a little more time to clarify with. That would be my suggestion.
Okay with that.
All right, so going on to January through December, and I just got these again late this afternoon, so bear with me. Yippee Arts, 2504. It started out where and the package that you got on Friday, just so you all know, disregard it because that shouldn't have gone out, that they had a lot of mistakes, okay? So this is the most recent one. And like 2 days ago, it had MSPS voted to refer the application to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and then it had 4 of us down as nays. We changed it to I because we all voted to refer it to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, but 2 names were taken out, and now we have Brian Zimmerman and Birgit Bogler voting aye. Well, this was in February, and neither one of them were on the subcommittee. So I'm reluctant to, without really looking at this again, because it just, in 2 days, we've tried to make this correction, and something gets corrected and something gets changed that's wrong. So I'm reluctant to really give it an approval until I see it correctly, because who knows what it's going to be, even if we say it, because I've put it in writing, highlighted it, done everything, and it's still coming back wrong.
So I had made a comment similar to that on a different application where the decision was listed as being in June, and my name was voted aye, and I explained this is not possible because I wasn't there until August. So I agree with Joan. I think that this whole thing should be tabled because it is going to take a lot more time for me also to go through those minutes. And I don't think that should really be done here and wasting everyone's time
No.
going back
I've
and
spent
forth.
about 10 hours on this over the last month or two, and we can talk about it more maybe in closed session. But I just saw this one as I came in again, and so I'm reluctant to trust the rest of it. But what
Because
I
I
can...
had gotten an email explaining what, how it was corrected, but that was just one explanation that I got, and I had many other questions. So
So if you'd all look at it.
So let's
Yeah,
table it.
let's,
I think it should be
let's
tabled.
coordinate the 4 of us and kind of get this right so that we have it memorialized for the
What-
year end.
Yeah, what is correct, because I know people want to know this. If you go to the very, very last page, I did put together a summary here. Well, somebody started it, but I changed it because the numbers will not add up, and that's on purpose. So in 2025, we reviewed 50 applications. 21 of them were for signs. New tenants that we approved were 19. And total other, that was like a fence or a paved parking lot or, internal renovations, something like that, there were 6. Now, the reason they won't add up is some people just submitted for sign, some just submitted for new tenant, but you had applications that submitted for both. So that's why you won't add these numbers correctly. Of the applications that we received, 10 of them required planning board variances. So we were getting these applications that needed variances, which should have been checked prior to coming to us. And then we transferred 3 of them to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So that's kind of the summary there, and we can go over it and some of the other issues another time.
Okay, so hopefully by next meeting, we'll be able to pin down
Yeah.
what things are,
The other
What's
thing
missing?
I'd like to point out, because the minor site plan subcommittee works on its own, and a lot of it isn't brought forth here. But there are things that I think need to be brought forth and that we have to address. I mean, we're a quasi-judicial body, and the minor site plan is the same thing. It's just a subsection of our planning board. I won't mention names here. We had an application that came in, and it needed a parking variance. And we said, this was probably, I'm guessing, in June. We said, it has to go to the full board. We cannot grant the variances. So instead of coming to the full board, we got the same application back about 2 months later, 3 months later. And we said the same thing. Has to go before the full planning board. We don't grant the variances. Comes to, give me a second here. It's 25-32. If you look at that on page 4. So instead of following the proper procedure, if an application is denied, and Ken, you can kind of help us out here, if an application was not approved at the planning board level, the recourse would be for the applicant to file a suit or to do something of that nature. In this case, they ignored both of the decisions on 2 occasions, and the person came in, threatened a lawsuit, and administration approved it. Never told us. So, these are things, I'm just bringing them out in the open, because I think we have an obligation to protect our board as a body. And we can't allow this to happen. And whether it means writing a letter or just paying attention in the future that these things don't happen and just saying, no, this can't happen.
So you're,
So it's, there's a lot going on with that, and so noted, and you're carrying the minutes, and if it has to be revised, it's my recollection was the applicant submitted that they were not seeking any variances or parking, and they signed a certification in support of that, so if they lied, there are repercussions for that, but again, we're spending a lot of time on the minutes that we agreed to carry. We have an audience here, and we have issues before you, so.
I agree.
Okay, but I'm not going to sweep it under the rug anymore. Okay, we're going to address this issue.
Is there any others
I
that fall like that?
have no problem with addressing the issue. I think that that's probably best discussed with the town manager who was in charge of,
Maybe let's put an executive session on next month.
we can discuss it.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
And just for clarification, are those meetings recorded?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, the unfortunate circumstance is that because of certain issues within the confines of the municipal building and meetings having been canceled, some of those meetings didn't even take place on site. So no, there's no recording of those meetings. Okay.
But even when they were outside in the conference room, they weren't being
Right,
recorded.
that's what I'm saying. So it's not something that was formalized. So moving forward to other board business and what our audience is here for, the master plan progress update for the circulation element of the master plan. And I am proud to introduce Mr. Brian Intindola, who has authored and put together this element for us and will be presenting it to us.
Mr. Ndola, just for the record, can you give your name and professional address, and then bring us through the report that you have created?
Thank you, Mr. Porro and Chairwoman Celeste.
Could you use the mic, please? We
Oh,
can't
yes,
hear
we
you.
need you to use the microphone, please.
I am
Very
the-
important.
I am the applicant, yes. So, my name is Brian Intindola, and I am a principal at Neglia Group, and my focus is municipal scale traffic issues, such as your circulation element, and I also work with the zoning board, and, I think this is my 2000th presentation in my career before an august body such as yours, and I appreciate the time that all these bodies take and the volunteer hours, because it's endless and there's many issues that you have to deal with. And so, and I'm currently employed with Neglia Group, and our business address is 34 Park Avenue in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. So we have the occasion to present our work in progress, which is the draft of the circulation element. In terms of context, circulation element is one of the 13 components that a master plan could have. And this board and the township of Sparta have elected to revamp the kind of like a placeholder circulation element as what most towns have, but we're looking to do something else. And so you have a hybrid process going on with our firm. And then what I mean by that is that typically we don't drill down to local intersections. We keep it global. But as we were formulating our proposal and liaising with the board, we were going to do counts at 4 intersections and looking at the different nodes and areas of Sparta. It ended up we did 10, right? So we went a little bit beyond the scope of work. And the reason why we did that was we believe it's important to take a snapshot in town or in time about how much traffic intersections, or the 10 of them that we looked at, are processing in the whole context of the Township of Sparta. And the reason why we've arrived at that, and there is a PowerPoint, but I'm talking off, and I'm not using the PowerPoint right now, but we can,
get it up.
I'm just giving you the background. So then, because what we're noticing that, in looking at the different traffic counts and the data that, post-COVID, there's a lot more residents working from home, and they are in town pretty much most of the day. And a lot of your peak hours, it used to be in traffic engineering, it was you take a traffic count at 7 to 9 and 4 to 6. But what we're finding out is that people work from home. Oh, there we go. And they're staying in town. So there's like an all-day traffic peak. So then let me go to the, we're going to go to the, after that preamble, we'll go to what we're talking about. So, right, what our charge is to, thank you, is to do an assessment of the existing infrastructure. We're forecasting future travel demand. Let me click one. Maybe, come on. There we go.
Right.
All right. I was using the old school cursor buttons on the,
That's why you brought Luke.
so, so we look at the trends and multimodal transportation strategies and capital improvement recommendations. So this PowerPoint or that is not the product, of course. The product is, the draft that it's a work in progress. And my colleague Luke here is doing your master plan as well. And ultimately, the goals of the master plan and the circulation element will mesh, right? Because we want them to be lockstep. And so what we're finding and going through the PowerPoint is that there is all kinds of traffic in Sparta. There's heavy truck traffic associated with quarrying operations and the railroad sidings. You have daily commute traffic. You have in-town traffic that stays, since COVID, pretty high all day. That's what we're finding. And so you have a lot of disparate uses without the benefit of a robust mass transit system. So if you're getting around in Sparta, you are using your personal vehicle, and in globally, compared to New Jersey and other towns, you have a pretty or top tier usage of the personal vehicle. Because, it's pretty obvious that you have the train, you have the bus to New York, which is to get to Port Authority. The train is, there's one station down in Lake Apacon, and then another one out by 23. So there's not a lot of mass transit options. But we looked at that, and we looked at the 10 intersections, and we're putting that all together ultimately in the final draft. And so, but we did find, some snapshots for you to have the benefit of looking at tonight, is that it seems that we use a program called Streetlight, and it uses car pings and your cell phone data to see where that data element sleeps and where it goes to work, right? Where it resides and where it works. So it seems that we can discern that we have a linkage between Picatinny, Arsenal, and Sparta. I think that probably is obvious that there's a lot of people that work at Picatinny that live in Sparta, but is borne out by this, because we like to back check it. I think the longest commute that we found was that someone works in Sparta down on Long Beach Island. I don't know who that is, but that is a monstrous commute. But we were able to discern that looking at the data. So we saw that as well. But that's the two polar opposites of what we found. So then we looked at, like, in our original charge, we're going to look at 4 intersections. And the more we thought about it, I said, because the way that Sparta is structured, it has a couple of like pods. You have the community area of Lake Mohawk, then you have other areas. We thought we would do a sampling of the 10 intersections to capture what was going on in Sparta. And that will be borne out in the ultimate report. The draft has been available to you, for a cursory look through. And so, when you get to the point where you gather all the data, right? And then, and it's me kind of stating the obvious, what everyone knows that's grown up here. Traffic is a bear, Route 15 is a monster. And I think that we find that Route 15, you love or hate it, it gets you to other areas in New Jersey, but it's the only way to get in and out of Sparta, aside from the secondary, like 181 and the county roads. But you have to balance that with the master plan goals, which we're working with Luke, is that, do you advocate for Route 15 to be 3 lanes northbound and 3 lanes southbound through Sparta, so you have more throughput? Or does the negative of that, because in traffic engineering, if you build it, they will come. The capacity will be taken advantage of. So we try and balance that in the master plan effort. We're not aggressive in trying to introduce more throughput, because from a traffic point of view, those days of introducing throughput at all costs are gone by the wayside. We're talking about now complete streets. How do you take a section, you take a 4-foot patch of the shoulder, and can you make it a bike lane? Can you make it work? Can you thread the needle? And that's what we look for when we do the circulation elements now. And so those are some of the things that we're looking for. Like, I was amazed that there's not a shuttle from the Lake Apacon station up to here, right? There's not, at least we can see. And then one of our report recommendations is that there's an occasional shuttle that goes, I think it's down Stanhope, that connects through and takes you down to the train station. So you have an option. So if you're in Manhattan at 8 o'clock, if you missed a bus, you can at least get to the train station and get a ride home eventually. So we were looking at that as well. Other things that is really unique to what we find, and, again, stating the obvious because you're on the planning board and you appreciate the town for what it is that you have like this great town and country tension, right? And that is like the downtown area here on Main Street, and also the more rural areas in Sparta. And, our goal is not to upend that, but to complement that. So we are looking to recommend that either it's a native application or it is a commercial application where you can figure out where the sidewalks are and you can get to a trailhead from basically from Township Hall to Lake Mohawk into the first set of trails that are up along that area. So we want to take advantage of that. And, that's part of what we're looking on. So like one of our bullet points in the key intersections, the impact on the community, like there's applications that come to the boards. Main Street is busy. It is always busy. And it's hard to get out of the driveways. And then do you build your way out of that? Or do you, in building your way out of that, what I mean, like putting left turn lanes in and right turn channelized lanes, and putting next level intersections is that something that Sparta wants? And most of these are on the county roads, so it takes a while to get through that process. So that's what we're looking at too. So that's where we're at in, gathering the data. We also look to see what regional traffic improvements are happening to Route 15. And they are spending millions of dollars literally on rockfall for Route 15. So, and that is in the programmed in the transportation improvement program, and it's in the draft. So we keep track of that, right? And then you make sure, as a town or the township advocates for its, citizens, that's something to be looked at to make sure progress for these large-scale projects are moving forward as they should, because they get bogged down in federal processes and things of that nature. So, and we also I think, do I have another slide? So those are the intersections we looked at, the 10. We looked at one, which is really interesting, is Main Street, Woodport, and Spring and Sparta. They're together, and we were thinking that could be perhaps future funded to be a modern circle, roundabout. Some people hate them, some people love them. And it's not for me to decide that, but we can just suggest that. But it seems that because it has a high accident rate, which is also what we looked at, and it's also in the draft, these are where these initial goals and recommendations are borne out. So that's where we are in a nutshell. And I mean, for us, as we love the uniqueness of Sparta. It's almost like the end of Route 15, but it's not. 15 goes from 3 to 2 to 1, and it happens here, basically. And it has its challenges because it carries a lot of traffic. It's like 29,000 vehicles per day, northbound and southbound added up. That's pretty substantial. And, that's the challenge. But I think a circulation element can't be skewed to solving Route 15 because you can advocate to get that solved with the DOT and your representatives at the State House and your congressman and congresswoman. But we believe that we'd like to take advantage of what you have and make it the best it can be, and then take the circulation element and serve as the basis of future grant funding to start to implement improvements that reflects what the town wants. So that's where we are. I think I have another slide. So then, just as more data, like we said, your evening peak hour is not 5:30. It's at 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. when people who are working from home take a break, either pick up their kids or they just take a break. But it all happens then. If I was here in 2018, it would have been 5:30 to 6:30. It's changed. And you're also when we look through the census data, the people that work from home are now at 20% here in Sparta. So I don't know if people move here with intention to enjoy Sparta and work from home, or they can move to Sparta because they don't care about the commute because they can work from home. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's a little bit of both. So there's that. That's what we discovered. And then your weekend peaks are typical. And but that is, what we're finding globally in New Jersey, that it's not the peak hour in the evening commute as much. It's a little bit earlier. And the peak is not much different from 10 a.m. on to 5:30 p.m. There's not a sharp peak anymore because people are going about their business and they're staying home. So that's what the circulation element has discovered so far, and that's ultimately, will this also foster the genesis of ordinances? So because Sparta is unique, right? Is it feasible to put sidewalks along every county road and residential runs or residential subdivisions that never had them. In some instances, yes, and most instances, no, right? So it's a good policy that new construction should have sidewalks, even if they're sidewalks to nowhere. I know some people do not like that, they don't make sense. Or, in talking with Luke, is that, you know, another alternate route is that you go, and it's a pretty extensive process, that you create a transportation improvement fund, and you can say, okay, this one street makes sense to have the sidewalks extended. And as different development projects come in, they pay towards a contribution to that, which is mayor and council buy-in, ordinance buy-in, and a way to administratively take care of it. But that's one way to look at that, to put in sidewalks where they're not, where they make sense, but the people that live or have businesses along those runs there's no need for them to build the sidewalks, and we'll make a suggestion in one of our mapping is potential areas where sidewalk connectivity gives you your best return on investment. So I think that's the way we'd approach that, ultimately, as sidewalks. Because it's like I said, it's a town and country situation, so we want to make the town part as connected as possible and then provide connection points to the non-town part as best as possible. And so that's where we are with our thought process and our data gathering. So that's, I think is that it? Oh, okay, and then, you know, you've heard it, at levels of service, A through F, the intersections, the 10 intersections we counted, we looked at them in the AM and PM peak hours to see what was at F. That one intersection that's, is an unsignalized intersection, has caught my eye, and that might be something that we would advocate for a modern roundabout, but I would like to gauge the temperature of course, the township, to see if they would, you know, want to move forward on that and invest, you know, their capital, whether it's political or relationship capital, with the county and doing something like that. But, you know, that we would advocate for that if we looked at that. So just as a highlight, Route 15, there's 30,000 cars per day. Another comparable road to Route 15 is, next on our list is Main Street from Sparta Avenue to Munsonhurst Road. It's about 11,000 cars per day. So you have these like Main Street really processes a lot of traffic. And that's why when you have applicants before you and, you know, the board said, well, you can't get out of the driveway. Well, you can't get out of the driveway because Main Street's that busy. And so that is all, you know, tabulated and put in the report. So, I mean, that's where we're at in terms of a checkpoint, I guess, for the circulation element. We're pretty far along with the data gathering. I'm going to say we're like 90% done with the data gathering. And the other 10% is working with Luke and Lindsay to put in policy statements and goals that are within reach and pragmatic. So that's where we are at. So if we have any questions, I'm glad to entertain them. And I think we have, that's it. Okay.
Can
So
you
that's,
put up the levels of service chart?
Yeah.
yes,
Skip the slide.
This one.
there's one more. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we,
you have- you
we
have-
threw, we
Yeah, you
threw
have
this
another-
in.
You have another couple slides here.
Yes, sorry. So then if you look at Sparta and North Shore, right? And its cousin at Pine Terrace, that's where you have levels of service F. So that's why we looked at that. And we believe that when we do that, the circulation element will have a preliminary plan and a budget, so that be carried forward into any grants that you may want to apply to that intersection. And so we looked at that. And then we just, those are just data samples for you to look at for those two intersections. And they're fairly busy. And so that's why we thought that the congestion and whatever frustration with drivers could be revisited. And we'll put together a preliminary list of improvements that we think can go forward. And then, So we were looking for, we talked about pedestrian connectivity. There's like, we're not huge fans of sidewalks to nowhere, but where we can thread the needle, we will. And create trails and bicycle routes. And, you're pretty well trailed. If you, in our draft report, we've come up with the number of trails that are existing in Sparta. And we also back-checked with the commercial application, all trails. And that's one of our recommendations that we do, and I spoke to that before about putting an app together or augmenting existing apps to get sidewalk connectivity as if it was a trail to have that town and country experience. And then we think that I've done it in other towns, whether you advocate for a federal grant to get a shuttle. I don't think you have a town shuttle. I think you rely on the local TMA or Transportation Mobility Association, which is the shuttle, but we've introduced commuter shuttles in not similar sized towns, but there is federal grants that pay for the, at least for the expense of the shuttle, and that can run to commuter centers where they make sense. Like, we don't have that route, and it's another input process. And so that's me. All right.
On the same slide as with the comparative levels of service, could you please address what you mean by movement counts? There's another
Is it me again?
chart
Hold on.
next to it.
Trying to bring it up. Yeah, it's like,
On the bottom. Be able to right-click that.
scrolling, but not.
Open. Open.
It's open.
Up top. First one.
Open. Don't know if the screen is refreshing. You know what I mean? Sometimes that happens with
Right, we
PowerPoint.
have the packet. They don't.
Yeah, I mean, we have it up, but.
No, because he has the keyboard.
Board, while we're going through that, just quick comment, Mr. Andola mentioned that how important the circulation element is for grants and the like. So this really is a great product that can be utilized to obtain grants, not only for sidewalks, as Brian said, shuttles, federal, state, county programs. So
I mean,
it's a good product.
Actually, if you have a question in the, from the, this PowerPoint, I have it in front of me here.
Right, but the
paper-wise.
public also needs to see it, Mr. Intendola.
Understood.
There you go.
There we go.
I think we are in the comparative levels of
we
service
go.
slide. Slide 10.
All right,
That
try
one.
to get there. Oh, just try to get there.
Brian, while we're getting that, what's the next step? Where?
The next step is that, as your master plan is being worked on, with Lindsay and Luke, I, liaise with them, and then, like I said, we expand our goals and our conclusions to mesh what they find with the demographics and the changes needed for, okay, for the township, right? I want to make sure, I'm not recommending pie in the sky, that it does not reflect the demographics that Luke is working on. And they're in the first, like, they're getting through that. If I misspeak, Luke, correct me. So, so that's where we're at. So I want the circulation element to be a resource with all the counts that we did, and also make suggestions, like we're looking at the slide now, where we have the levels of service F. which means the intersection is annoying to get through. And so, and these are unsignalized intersections, because we also recommend that the signalized intersections in the township are mostly county intersections. And we can, reach out to Sussex County and say, could you please make sure that your traffic signals have been inspected and are working as intended? Because we find that a lot of traffic signals drift over time. You have a blackout, it goes to a default timing that will cause so much aggravation. And really, all you need to do is open the box, check the programming, close the box, fix the programming. And then we believe that needs to be done before you start suggesting adding signal heads and lanes for the signalized intersections. Now,
Yeah, but Brian, if I may, on that point, because that's a very, very good point. People are unaware when we get a blackout or lights go out, that they are not reprogrammed or recalibrated to the specifications they were originally supposed to meet.
yes.
And it takes them 30, 60, 90 plus days or whatever to coordinate that. And that's big. I've seen it myself driving through town, and I could tell when they weren't, and when they were out, and or when they were recalibrated. So knowing that, when you did this study, did you look at that, were those lights assessed, those signals assessed, based on the information you're presenting tonight?
No,
Or
I did
you're
not-
just recommending that
I'm
we should
recommending,
look
right.
at this? So it is subject to, possibly your study subject to some of those signals impacting or skewing the data, correct?
Yes, so we always recommend that the jurisdiction that runs the traffic signal or has responsibility for it, at least once a year, does a maintenance check. Most do, but like you said, so not to get into the arcana of traffic signals, but I will because I can't help myself, is that the traffic signals get their time stamp from the frequency of the power provided by the utility. If the generator ramps up a little bit or slows down a little bit, it changes the frequency that sets the 60 hertz, which is how a clock is set. So it's not an independent clock, it's a power company clock. And over time, like the AM and PM timings drift. So you have to get in there and you have to reset it and reset the clock. Unless you do when I design them now, we put a little hockey puck on top, which is a GPS receiver, and it gets the time signature from 3 satellites. So it's independent of the local power grid. But I'll stop. Okay. And then I think there's a question from one of the board members.
Yeah, so you didn't address the red counts are not permitted at these intersections, movement counts. What is that? Because when I looked at this presentation, I couldn't figure that
So-
out for myself.
There are cheaters,
What does that mean?
and people are making westbound lefts at Sparta and North Shore Trail because they're not allowed. And they, for whatever, with frustration or for whatever reason, and they do that with the westbound right at Sparta Avenue and Pine Terrace. So I think if they see an opportunity, they just jump on it and they do a loop around. And so that's what's happening. So that, to me, is becoming my pet project to revamp that intersections to see if we can make them a little bit more efficient. And it just coincidentally, you see the red in the counts, and then you see, I guess I'll call it salmon, on the left, and that's where you have levels of service F, which indicates that there's certain driver frustration at these intersections, and the intersection frustration or experience is borne out by people just wheeling around and making U-turns. So that's what we're finding at that one intersection when we did the counts.
So Brian, just for the public, it's like school, A is good, B is.
Oh, yeah, so what we're presenting is based on the Highway Capacity Manual, published by the Transportation Research Board, for methodology to determine grading scales on how intersections operate on a grading scale of A through F, A being the best and F being the worst. So then those intersections that we were just speaking about with the illegal almost U-turns are the ones that have caught our curiosity to see what we can do better.
And Brian, in the parentheses, that is the count, the number of cars is,
The parens is the delay per vehicle on average. So if you are on Sparta Avenue and North Shore Trail, and you are an overall level of service F, which is pretty annoying, you have to wait a while to make turning movements through that intersection.
Is
so
that
the 400 and,
53.9 seconds?
yeah.
Because it's
not
certainly
yet.
not minutes.
That's
Yeah,
my
so
question.
that's how, you're waiting a while.
Yeah, but so
That's
the
seconds.
delay is in seconds. Your units of
Delay is in
measurement
seconds,
is in
yes.
seconds.
Yes, the average
Okay.
delay per vehicle.
So Ken, just so you know,
Can you go back
I.
and put these in footnotes in
Yeah,
your
sure,
final?
sure.
So we
No,
can,
we have a full it's fully explicated in the body of the draft. We just put these out as snippets from the draft.
All right, so just for the public, the chart is reflecting the ABCD, the grade of the intersection, and then in parentheses, it's the amount of time that a person is waiting before they can enter that intersection.
Right, it's on a bell curve, so it's the average delay experienced on a bell curve. Sometimes you get lucky, you get right through, and sometimes you're longer, but it's basically on a bell curve experience.
So Ken, I spent a lot of time this afternoon going through this presentation, and I have a lot of questions. So since we're on this slide, Pine Terrace and North Shore Trail are part of Lake Mohawk Country Club. Those are private roads.
Well, it indicates it's county route.
Sparta Avenue 517 is county road, but Pine Terrace, unless I am incorrect, is Lake Mohawk Country Club. And Ernie Reichstag is confirming that, and so is North Shore Trail. So that's,
They're private roads.
they're private roads. You
Still-
weren't aware of that?
Well, when we did our smattering of counts, right, we did 10 counts, we were jurisdictionally blind. We just thought where we saw nodes that made sense, we got the traffic count data.
So define node.
It's like, where do you think traffic is going to gather to go somewhere else, right? So then that was like a gathering for that neighborhood and it's going out into the larger county area. So that's why we counted that. Because the data is available to us for the service that we use, we can just get the data.
Okay, so that is cut-through traffic, because a lot of people are using those private roads to have a shortcut between 517 and 181.
Yep.
And those are private roads. Those private roads were never designed to handle that much traffic cutting through them. People live on those blocks. People have kids who play on those blocks. People walk their dogs on those blocks. People try to get out of their driveways on those blocks. So how would, in your experience, how would you suggest that a node be fixed where, you can't take away a private road and make it town? So how do you propose to fix that node, knowing now that those two roads, North Shore Trail and Pine Terrace, are private?
That is so, if it's a non-starter, we identify an issue.
Okay.
Right, that it's level of service F. If it's a non-starter due to jurisdictional issues, there's nothing much we can do.
I see. Okay.
Unless, it's like almost like a college campus situation, right? To me, it's the same thing. And unless the entity that controls that road reaches out with some sort of memorandum of understanding or agreement that they would like to be participants in improvements, then it's not a non-starter, but sounds like it's not happening.
Yeah, if I may. Well, first off, I mean, it's a moving target, right? I mean, really appreciate the work and the effort you put into this. So just for my understanding, is it uncommon or is it, the study here is to set a baseline for a resource guide as the master plan is going through its progression or change, correct? And then you will readdress it at the end to make sure the circulation is supportive of the master plan, correct?
Correct. So if the master plan suggests areas that, it's just a hypothetical, that there should be more intense development, like say next to Route 15. I don't know if the master plan is going to say that or not, but then the circulation element should reflect that there are intersections that are inadequate to support that, or they will need to be improved in the context of the development process. We don't know the answer to that yet. So
All right,
yes.
and based on your selection of the 10 nodes, 80% of your study proved that we really didn't have much of a traffic area issue in 8 out of 10 of them.
For the
targeted-
most part, they operate pretty well.
So
Yes.
it's a pretty positive, from a perception issue, I think people were probably going to think it was a little bit more intense or, but I'm seeing that as a positive with those two areas, with maybe a more concentration or focus in those two areas that you identified on preliminary data to be issues, correct?
Yeah, overall, this unsignalized intersections work well. There may be times where there are strong peaks, like as soon as the kids get out of school. That's annoying when you're trying to get across town because you cannot make time. But other than that, for the most part, the intersections that we looked at, the one subject intersection that is not within the township, halfway not in the town jurisdiction, seems to be the one that has, seems to be problematic. So overall, not terrible.
Okay, and then lastly, when you, just similar to the signals, not accounting for maybe their accuracy or them being programmed correctly, did you consider any construction patterns that were going on and that were going on during the time of your study and your counts? I.e. Route 15 bridge that's been was out for a long period of time that had a lot of backup people trying to cut and navigate around it. We had a lot of construction in town as well. Going on with the sewer lines and the gas lines, et cetera. So were you able to document the construction activities during this? And can you put, if so, can you put that or reference that as some of your, observations?
So what, the traffic data that we use is a statistical cross-section of many time periods. And so that gives us a little, so then we're not subject to if I go to count traffic with my board or my traffic counter, and I don't know that there's a detour down the street, then my data is kind of skewed, not right, okay? But what we do is we use, the data set that makes these traffic counts is like 15 data sets, which is the beauty of using vehicle and cell phone based data. And then it goes through a statistical correction so that it correlates with an actual field count, which then makes it acceptable to the DOTs of the world. So that's all kind of proved out.
But what is that? So that's like averaging out the spike and dips?
Yes, it does. But the data that I have is not skewed by when we had the sinkholes on Route 80, right? Because it was a mess, right?
Right.
It's it was just a mess. And then when you have sewer work and gas work that seems to be endless, that is not skewing the data as well. So we try to avoid that. That's why we go to, I think I have 10 data points per intersection, over 8 hours.
And Mike, I think if I remember, and correct me, Brian, it was from 2009 to 2021, a very long period.
Yeah, it's actually, they just
so
updated
it's-
through to 25,
So this is
the data.
probably.
I'm sorry, you-
26.
You just updated the data through 25?
No, the data runs many years and up to and including 2025.
Okay.
But what we have here is just through 2021?
No, it was, we just updated the
Oh,
program.
you did?
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that.
No, we refreshed the program subscription.
Are you talking about the searchlight data?
Streetlight, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, streetlight data?
Yes.
And what were those years again? that
I
you-
think we selected 21. I have to look to see what the composite are, but the bottom line is that it's more data points that I would if I was physically counting them. Because if I physically count them or hire a data service to physically count it, it's more, to me, more arbitrary, and these are statistically vet it, like the standard deviation changes when you have enough data samples and stuff like that. So it just is not subject to that.
Okay. Since we're on this slide, I noticed that there were 5 other intersections where you don't have the delay on. Do you have the delay for Main Street and Woodport Road and Spring Street?
If it's
Sparta Avenue?
if it's signalized, I did not do the levels of service for it, as we explained.
Ah, I see.
So because we do that because we figured if it met the warrants for a traffic signal, right? It's doing its function as a traffic signal. And as we had said before, that if the traffic signal is maintained and updated as it should be working how it's intended.
And Brian, just for the record, if you could explain also, to get a traffic signal is not an easy feat in and of itself. So is that what you're saying? If there is a traffic signal
Depends on
there-
the consultant you're talking to, Ken,
Yeah.
But no, the manual of uniform traffic control devices has, I think it's 6 or, no, I think it's up to 12 warrants that qualify for a traffic signal. So if you go to the county and say you make the peak hour warrant, 1 peak hour, they'll say, basically get lost, because every intersection at some point will make a peak hour warrant. So they'll say, what is the 4 and the 8? Is there sustained demand for a new traffic signal? So, it's a process, and you have to do a standalone traffic signal warrant to see if it needs to be signalized, and even if it's warrantable, doesn't bring any liability upon the township if they make that determination, which some towns are hesitant to do that because they don't want to have a situation where a signal is obvious, but the funds are not there, or the design is not there. So yes, it is a process. It's about a 2-year process. In some counties, it's a 5-year process.
Was North Village, one of your, the North Village 15 intersection, one of the nodes in your study?
Hold on a sec.
North Village
was-
going
it
up to
was-
White Lake,
it
and then
was
it was Houses
bookend.
Corner.
It was bookended,
Going-
Mike. It was NJ 15 and Wilson Drive / White Lake and Houses Corner and Lafayette Road.
So they were all
they-
consolidated, it was,
No, it was 2 separate points, but
Okay.
ShopRite, North Village is in between those 2.
but that data was captured.
Yes, that was a weird intersection, but we were able to capture it.
But because there's a traffic light there, we don't have delay data. Do I have that correct?
How about accident-prone areas? Was that factored in? Were we able to get some police data where we had some troubled areas where most of our accidents occur?
We looked at the available data for your accidents, and please hold. Which, my report? It's in the draft, it's page 35. And so what we were able to do is that we did a global mapping of, it's on page 36 of the draft, and the red areas show a heat map of problematic runs. It's in the report. And then getting to your crashes that are available from the State Police Safety Voyager system. The number 1 crash intersection is Houses Corner and Lafayette Road, also 15. So that's got 57 crashes from 2021 to 25, and 13 people were hurt at that intersection. So that intersection needs a little work, we would say, on a safety.
Brian, when you presented this draft to the subcommittee last week, you had the data, so it's obviously in your computer. Are you able to put it up here so everybody could see that data? Because I thought that was kind of informative to really see those numbers.
Well, I have it in the report, but I didn't put it in the PowerPoint. 'Cause I didn't
Okay,
think we were
okay.
gonna, but I can tell you that Houses Corner and 15, 57 crashes. New Jersey, 15, and New Jersey 181, when they come together, 55 over that same period, and 15 and Wilson / White Lake Road, 53. So those are the top three that are substantial and they have a history of injuries from 21 to 25.
Brian, do you have anything about 181 and 517 intersection? Because I find that very busy and challenging, and the site isn't very good going into Sparta coming up the hill there.
If I didn't count it, I will count it.
Florida Pharmacy.
Sparta Pharmacy,
intersection.
Ocean State Job
Oh,
Lot,
making that left
Welsh
or
Farms,
making- I see.
United Methodist.
He has all that, but it's not here.
15 and 181?
That's why I thought if you could
Yeah,
put it up.
181 and 517, the intersection there.
Oh, if we haven't looked at it, we will.
You did,
Okay.
you did. Okay. Since we haven't left this chart yet, I have a couple questions on it. If you look over at the right, for the movement counts for Sparta Avenue, North Shore Trail, and then the Pine Terrace, all of the traffic is coming from North Shore, whether it's leaving North Shore or coming onto North Shore. It doesn't matter if it's from Pine Terrace or North Shore Trail. So would I be correct in saying that the 1624 and the 1547 for weekday mornings represent about 3,200 vehicles?
So, yes, right, if you look
Right,
at,
because it just
on the
branches
weekday,
off, so
right,
it
on the
doesn't matter
weekday.
which one, it's all
Yep.
coming or going
Yep,
from there. So about 3,200 vehicles. So when you look then at West Shore Trail and North Shore Trail, the other end, the only possible way that they can either come or go, those numbers were very different and got A and B ratings. So I started to look at that, and what I realized is that your peak hours were different. So you had peak hours of 2:30 to 3 or whatever for North Shore and Pine Terrace. But when you got to West Shore Trail, they were like a 5 to 6 hour. So it's apples to oranges. Can you go back and do the same time period so we can see it? I mean, it says something interesting to me is that the peak
Right.
hour wanes and the
right.
traffic is way down at that time, but it's not a comparable number.
Yeah, we'll look at that. They're probably very similar.
No.
No, I mean, when we look at those time periods, we'll look to
Look at
see
them,
that.
yeah, because that represents a whole other factor, from West Shore Trail to North Shore. But, if you have 3,200 vehicles on that road, they have to be coming and going from that other side. And so, I didn't check them all, but if you could just go back and make sure that if we're looking at a chart like this, that they're all the same time period so we can compare the A's, the B's, the C's. Because I have a feeling West Shore and North Shore are going to change from A and B to an F.
We'll look at that.
Okay.
Could I have two quick questions?
Sure.
So the first question I have is for West Mountain Road and Main Street. On eastbound weekday mornings, there's no data there. And that to me would be when there's a huge amount of students and teachers and school buses and whatnot getting to the high school. So I was just wondering why there was no data in there.
Which intersection was that?
So West Mountain Road and Main
Second
Street,
one.
517,
Oh,
weekday
okay.
AM, eastbound.
Yeah, let's see. We do have the weekday AM. I don't know why we didn't put that in there. So, but we do have levels of service D on the PM. And I guess that, I don't know why. I guess it was a formatting issue. I don't know why that did not report. I have it in the appendix, but it'll take me a couple minutes to find it.
He has the data, it just wasn't populated into the PowerPoint.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. That's
Thing I wanted to contribute is, I think a lot of this North Shore Trail and Pine Terrace, I think a lot of that backup has to do with school traffic, because I know in the mornings, it's between people dropping off their kids coming up North Shore Trail, and then the traffic progresses through the school over to 517 and then backs up at that light. And I think the main issue there is you could make a right, excuse me, you could make a right on red there. And so between the right on red and the traffic light, if you are coming out of North Shore or Pine Terrace, whether it's drop off in the morning or when school is out, there is a huge congestion there. That might be what those are referring to, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. That makes, this is Joan, it makes it even scarier because kids are in the car.
Does anyone else on the dais have questions?
I got I apologize, I get yelled at because I didn't speak into the mic last time. First of all, I appreciate you being here and presenting this to us tonight. When I think of a master plan, my thoughts are, not just today, but what are the problems we're going to be facing 20 years out? And the background data that you had in here and we've been discussing tonight is very helpful for at least, setting the table for here's a good starting point. I don't think we want to limit it there, but I'm not sure the master plan gets into fix this intersection, or I think that's outside. What I didn't see, and it sounds like it's still in works, was what are the goals and objectives? And to me, that's the heart of the element. And I think when I look at the other master plan elements, they're all there and they're in one section and it's real clear. I know we had, when we did the recreation, we went to that and they did a really good job there. The other thing was when I looked at the recommendations, a lot of the recommendations seem to be more with pedestrian traffic and trails than the vehicular traffic and you just have in there. And, the traffic, that's 76% of the problem per the report. So I'm hoping that, it sounds like you're still working goals and objectives, and there will be some there that talks to the vehicle traffic on a top level basis as opposed to like an intersection level basis. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Okay,
that goes
great.
with the segue as the master plan gets set when there's more focus on macro issues.
Yes.
The circulation element will be more
goes
fulsome to reflect that. Because our approach to this circulation element is that when we wrote the proposal, it was a hybrid, right? We want to get a snapshot of what it is now, which is, I think we're done with that part of it. And then as we develop the master plan, the goals and recommendations of the circulation element will reflect those more macro issues.
So it's going to be something we're going to look at 10 years from now. We're going to say, yep, we still need to be monitoring.
And that would be
this
like,
goal and objective.
right, that is to focus on connectivity,
Okay.
The larger infrastructure investments that, I believe that as Sparta grows up, it's going to be evident that that's going to be needed in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Even more so. So we will reflect that ultimately. But thank you for your comments.
One recommendation I'd give to you is that, take a look at the existing master plan from, I guess it's 1984. I read the element that you prepared, and I also looked at the existing element. And I think there's a lot of goals and objectives in there that are still valid today.
Oh, no,
and probably
yes.
could be easily carried forward.
Those, we find that to be the same.
Yeah.
That the needs that a town has, they tend to stick around to be multi-generational.
Yep.
And that, I don't think Sparta is any exception.
Okay. One other suggestion is, in the section, I think it was section 3, the planned improvements. That was limited, the way I read it, to really just talking about the rock falling mitigations going along Route 15. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the town in terms of this road plan, which talks about, like a calendar, a circular or a cycle of roads are going to get paved, they're going to get looked at and fixed, and talks about line of sight. It'd probably be worth it to get some type of, that doesn't need to be a lot, but just, when you're looking at improvements, what are we doing as a town today? Just, again, as a baseline, and maybe bring some of that into the final draft. And then the last comment I would have is, again, looking at the old master plan, there was a lot of discussion in there about the Route 517 bypass, which has been taken care of. But I think the version of that today is Route 15. So I'm hoping that the master plan is going to have some goals and objectives in terms of things we can do. And I know it's not our road, but we can voice opinions, we can make recommendations to the county, to the state. So hopefully there'll be some goals along those lines. So those are my comments. And the only one favor I can ask if I could is in the future when you put out the draft, mark it as draft or unapproved, because there's probably going to be various versions of this going around between now and when it's approved. This way we know.
I've
The
learned
actual
my
file.
lesson.
The
It
version
says draft, and it has the date right on it. So we do have that on the,
so I'm talking about on the actual document itself.
yeah, it's on the actual document.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right, because,
All right, my mistake. Thank you.
right, so we'll make, like, I have to have date orthodoxy on these, because we'll make office changes, and then someone won't back save it correctly, so you touch it, you date it. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a quick question. You'd mentioned earlier about a roundabout or something. What intersection was that you were talking about?
That's the intersection that I can't do because it's owned by a private entity. That would be at, where is it? Where is it? Right there, it's right up here, where we have the levels of service F, North Shore and Pine.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were suggesting the roundabout for Main Street at Woodport Road and Spring Street at Sparta Avenue, which is the Valley
okay.
Bank jug handle.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah, yeah,
whole
that's what
other
it was.
animal. So
I
which are you
misspoke.
talking
I
about?
misspoke.
That is the roundabout you're talking about,
yes,
the
yeah,
valley,
yes.
where the bank is, the jug handle?
Oh, the
Just
jug.
one, just one, just one.
Ah,
Oh, okay. All right, that makes more
Right.
sense.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Yeah, thanks.
I have one question. One of the items that was discussed during our, that breakout meeting that we had at the high school when we presented the
Stakeholder
plan.
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, some of the residents who were there had talked about incorporating, possibly working with utility companies to bring natural gas to other parts of Sparta. I mean, the newer developments have it, and I know that it is coming closer. Is that in any way part of this plan?
Like, circulation elements are many things, but it's not that. But we could recommend that as projects are being repaved, that accommodation or coordination should be made for utility upgrades, whether it's water, sanitary, or natural gas. So we could make that one of the part of a wired-in policy for the master plan and also the circulation element.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to add it in.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
So to piggyback off of a few of Ron's comments, we have a lot of roads here that have connectivity to private-owned, county, and state. So whether it be 613 that runs through Lake Mohawk and connects to, or 605, or it be 517, or it be 15 and 181, all of these roads connect at some point to Lake Mohawk, to Knowles, there are a lot of private areas that have connectivity to these spaces. So when we look at putting together a potential recommendation or a potential program, are we going to be discussing how to get these parties to work together to try to bring forward some of these recommendations? Or is there, I mean, are we just going to kind of throw up our hands in defeat and say, all right, well, there's nothing we can do because Lake Mohawk and the state and the county all kind of need to get together to figure out what's happening in this one spot, and we're out of luck. I think a lot of this conversation has to be how to get the town, the private communities, and the state to work together. I think that's where we really need a lot of recommendations and a lot of help, because these conversations obviously have been ongoing for quite some time. Everybody's been concerned about traffic in one space or another, Do you have any thoughts on, I mean, yeah, we've got two areas that are F, but, you know, we've also got some Ds and Cs, which, you know, you add any fair share housing here, those Ds and Cs are very quickly going to have the same issues as, you know, as North Shore and Pine Terrace. So you have any thoughts?
So, you know, because I'm a little obsessive, I think about these things, like how do you move forward? It seems like you do have the town and country element in Sparta, but you also have jurisdictional divisions that make it difficult to, you know, have a capital master plan or, you know, like a 20-year plan or a 30-year plan for your improvements. So for a town of this size, I think it's a bit of a stretch to do like a transportation improvement district, but it might be elements of that. Transportation improvement district is a legislative tool that the Township of Sparta, or it could be a county, or in other areas, it's the New Jersey Meadowlands. They are independent transportation improvement districts that, through legislation, get empowered to effect these improvements. I think that's a bit extreme for Sparta because it's a town of 20,000 people. And to do that, you really need a critical mass of like a Mercer County population, you know, to make that work. But there's got to be something in between, is what I'm thinking. And if the parties are willing, right, anything can happen. But if the parties need to come together and see how it's mutually beneficial to them, then there's a way forward. And we can look at that and make that recommendation on how to provide a path for improvements that are not solely in the jurisdiction of the township, right? I mean, when you work with the county and the state, you know, I don't know, my 20 years experience, if you bug them enough, you'll get stuff done, right? And then we all know that, right? That's what mayors and councils do really well in New Jersey, right? And so how do you do that internally? I think that at some point, you're going to have a frank roundtable discussion with these entities and say, this is what we would like to do. And are you interested in moving forward? And let's see how that can be done. A little bit beyond my, you know, my process here, but we will make those recommendations.
Have you seen any other municipalities that have any similarities to us?
Well, within gated communities, during their approval process, when it's at the planning board, the local governing body and the planning board can negotiate certain improvements, right? But I would say that I don't know the exact history of Lake Mohawk, but I think it almost predates the town a little bit, or like they're co-equals in some sense in the timeline, not in jurisdiction. So then that's not an avenue. So there has to be another avenue. And I don't know if like there's like, we have town gown situations between universities and townships, and they get along pretty well, you know, but there is that tension. So, and not a bad tension, just it has to be worked out. And I don't know exactly how you approach if that like community, it's its own HOA and it owns its own roads and the sewers and the gas lines, or the sewer's a hybrid, you know, you get to, you know, you work all that out. And
Well, I think that's a great point. So anywhere there's conflicts where there's private roads coming in from whatever, tying into a state, a county road, and any suggestions to make any improvements, whether it's a simple signal and/or major circle type recirculation design, who's responsible for bringing? I'm assuming the private road has to meet certain specifications to be brought up to spec in order for that project to move forward. Correct? I mean, I'm thinking of the Pine Terrace Road, right? When you see that road, people park on it, you know, you got in and out, there's a lot of activity going on that. Is that road even up to spec? And if and when there's proposed suggestions, lights, changes, who would be responsible for bringing that up to spec, that road up to spec? Wouldn't it be part of the approval process?
The design engineer, of course, has to bring it up to spec. Then the cost allocation can be worked out, right?
And I'm
then-
thinking more financial.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
cost allocation can be prorated based on, like if you are a developer on the NJDOT side and there is a traffic signal downstream that you are contributing to, you pay your prorated share. That's been vetted, but because the entity is not new, how do you go back in time and figure out the prorated share? You really can't. So there has to be some sort of reasonable negotiation for that. Like say, like when we do a traffic signal that's next to a state highway, and we wanted to get it upgraded, in the state policy is that the towns only pay for the cost of the electrical improvements. That's how they do it, right? So I'm doing that in a couple towns. So maybe that's how you do that. That if you have a tri-party agreement, right? It's almost like a joint
So
meeting.
it's a little more challenging than when you're dealing with a lake community
yeah.
or an HOA type situation where the burden of those costs may not be comparable to,
Correct.
larger agencies that you're referencing. And I've seen that in the past, and I seen the communities get, whether they want to deed the road over to the township, right? They still have to bring it up to spec
Yes.
at their expense to then at least be able to get that road deeded over and taken over by the township.
Right. So, what is presenting to me is that we also involved in joint meetings, like sewer joint meetings. You almost are creating a joint meeting for your traffic improvements that the joint meeting could sunset after they're done. That's for Ken's structure, not for me, but it seems to be like you are in some sort of joint meeting situation where it's two entities in a couple of jurisdictions.
Can you take another look at that whole thing? And we have a gate at Lake Mohawk, which is non-functional right now for a long time, but it's further down. Can you maybe look at it and make a recommendation as to maybe a better placement for the gate? Maybe if it's up by the club or Indian Terrace, where there might be a little turnabout, that would block a lot of that cut-through traffic. Whether that's an option, it might be much more cost-effective, and maybe we can split those costs, or rather than redesigning all roundabouts, and maybe just look at some other alternative solutions.
I would say, as an advocate for the township of Sparta, if the association sends us a letter to look at that, we'd be glad to, because it's coming out of our scope, right? But like that,
Okay.
so if I look at it and I expend hours to do that, where do they come from, right? So that, if it's wanted, we'll look at it.
Okay, the Pine Terrace, just to be sure that we're all talking about the same little road, Pine Terrace is a small little connector between North Shore and 517. Pine Terrace is where you make the left if you're going to make a left onto 517. You cannot make a left from North Shore onto 517. If you're making a right onto 517, you go North Shore to come to that corner, and then you make the right. But Pine Terrace is about like this big. It's teeny tiny. Right behind it is houses. Right across from it in Lake Mohawk is houses. There's no room physically for a roundabout. It's also private road. So I don't see how it's feasible to do anything with Pine Terrace, and I don't really see what benefit there would be to, examining what the possibilities are, especially given the fact that it's a private road. That being said, if that road gets closed off to traffic, it will send a lot more traffic to Sparta Avenue and to Main Street, because people are no longer going to be able to cut through Lake Mohawk in order to get to 181, which is where I think the majority of those numbers are actually coming from.
Right, we're not proposing to close it, we're just,
But no, right, and it wouldn't even fall within the township's jurisdiction to do so. But getting back to something that you said earlier about, traffic flowing on 15, in one of your earlier slides, you mentioned that people work the work slide, where do people work? I forget what slide that was.
Yeah, the Picatinny
The one
slide.
with the red, there's a map on the left-hand side, NJ15 work locations.
That
That's
would be slide 4, but I don't have the controller.
that one. Okay. So 15 connects to 206 and.
That's
can you
not
go
it.
to-
Slide 4?
Yeah.
Or did they?
Why do we have 3 of these open?
Brian, while we're waiting on that, have you seen in other communities, the use of like one-way streets or, just other mechanisms that assist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not I try, personally, like as a traffic engineer, I try and not introduce one-way streets unless we really have to, like, and as long as there's a reasonable, if I can do a one-way street or implement one, I need to have a couplet so that what was the one way that can't go down the one way, then the other next street is not overburdened. So we're very careful to look at that, but, we look at, some towns love speed humps. And so we look at that and we install them where you have chronic, speeding issues. That's there's also enforcement and education, but we look at everything, we try and apply what's not exorbitantly expensive to get like an effective, response traffic-wise. Okay, we got
Okay.
the slide up?
Yeah, so now we're here. And so 15 connects to 206 in Frankfurt. So on the right-hand side, it said, most residents work within Sparta or nearby municipalities. The second row says NJ15 between, it should be 181, not 118. You have a little
Sorry
typo there.
for the typo, apologize.
And Sparta Avenue, 517. And those people tend to work in Augusta and Frankfurt Township. NJ15 connects to 206 in Frankfurt. And that's also how you get to Milford and in Pennsylvania, or to like Port Jervis in New York. Are you accounting for the additional traffic that comes especially from Pennsylvania?
What that slide represents is where people work and where they're sending. So so as you go out and it's more gray, it would show that. Like if I zoomed in the program, in the analysis, when I do the query, like I said, I saw the one commuter that works in LBI. I saw a dot down the shore, and similar to on the Pennsylvania side, when you go to that quadrant of that, it would show if there's a strong correlation to Milford or, up in that area. Yeah, to answer your question.
Okay. You also mentioned about Picatinny. So that part of NJ15 also has a lot of heavy traffic, also coming from Pennsylvania, because that's how you get to Route 80, which is about a mile further south of Picatinny. So I know that you.
So that data reflects where you park your car for 8 hours.
Cars.
That's where it
Going from
pings.
Sparta and going to Picatinny.
Ah,
That's one shot.
So the people that are commuting further on, they're accounted for when they ping in their local, at their work parking lot. And that's why I said we can see the one unfortunate or maybe fortunate person that commutes to Long Beach Island.
okay. So what I'm trying to get at is the volume of cars that is on 15 currently. And the Sparta section, the section of 15 that runs through Sparta, we are also getting drivers who are not residents, who aren't working in Sparta, but travel through Sparta in order to get to Interstate 80,
Yes.
to get to Morris County, to get out of the county. So
We can make that determination as well. I could do a query for non-Sparta traffic that passes through a zone that's set on Route 15.
I think that that would be a valuable bit of
We,
information because
I was
there
working on
are-
that analysis and I didn't quite finish it because the data was weird. It didn't reflect what I thought it would be, so I have to rerun it.
Thank
So
you.
it's.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can also tell from accident reports who are actual Sparta residents and who are not.
Yes.
So,
Can we go back
For
to
the-
vision? Oh,
Just one second, just to go back to the Pine Terrace North Shore intersection that we were talking about, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that is the reason it looks the way it does, probably about 25 years ago, there was a collaboration between the county and the lake.
Oh, good.
To put it the way it is, Pine Terrace used to be basically an unused and much smaller road, and all the traffic came in and out on North Shore.
Right.
The problem there was Route 181 at that time had two lanes going up the hill, or, I'm sorry, 517, two lanes going up the hill, one lane coming down the hill. And there were a lot of rear-end accidents there for people trying to make a left-hand turn on the North Shore. The reason it was Pine Terrace was improved was because they needed the distance to be able to put a turn lane in. Because there's a turn lane up the hill that makes a left into where the preschool is over there. And so, again, it's a 25-year-old solution to that took the worst accident intersection in town to a much safer level. However, traffic volume has changed. Maybe 25 years later, there is a better solution if you see it. I know that, as I said, Lake Mohawk and the county did cooperate on making that intersection safer. So I don't think it's completely off the table.
Thank you.
And then this is,
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
At another intersection? Okay. If we look at the intersection right now where we have, the Shell station, so, there's a lot going on at that intersection. There's the Shell station, the church, the pharmacy, and, job lot all around the intersection I'm talking about. And one of the big issues is we also have the senior housing up there. Excuse me, right now, there's a traffic stop that was installed there as well. So the intersection itself and leading up to it has a lot going on. Something that has really always puzzled me, and I'm wondering if they noticed anything in their review of this intersection. Not all four of the lights have a left turn arrow.
Right.
So when you're coming up, for example, when you're coming up and the church would be on your left and the Shell station would be on your right, making that left is very difficult because you have limited sight. There's a hill coming up from the other side. And I'm wondering if when you were reviewing it, that stood out to you guys as well, because I think taking the fact that there is the traffic box, there's people coming in and out of the senior, making a left in or a left out, and then you have these lights, and it seems like all of them should have left turn signals. There's been a significant amount, I'm sure Ernie, you would say as well, there's been a significant amount of serious accidents at that intersection over time as well.
Yes.
So you could have left turn lanes without indicators. It's like a frugal way of getting the left turns out of the way. Because then if you have a left turn lane arrow, then you should provide green time for it. It's like split phasing. And we'll look at that and we'll see if there's any recommendations to, first, as we said, make sure the timing is right. Because when you go through that corridor, the lights have to work correctly, and we'll check that to see if it works right.
as she's saying on that, when you're coming 517 southbound from Route 23, there is a left turn arrow and a delay on the traffic on the other side. However, there isn't on the other side. So the people are going to try to make a left onto 181 and go down to 15. Could sometimes sit there through 2 or 3 cycles of lights at
It's not working right.
volume time.
Right, just not working right.
Right.
So that's a neat, so we'll look at that as well.
You know, when you're coming up facing the pharmacy as well. So two of the lights have a left turn, like a delay and a left turn arrow. And the other 2, or 3 of them do, but one of them does not. So I was just wondering if maybe you guys could take a look at that and we could get your opinion.
Yeah, we'll look at that, and if the timing is not right, I usually reach out to this is an NJDOT intersection, and we'll reach out to the DOT to have them refresh the timing, because 9 times out of 10, it does need attention when we raise the issue.
Brian, if I can, I just want to go back to what I was talking about before. I just don't want to lose track of it. So a lot of these issues that we're talking about now and that were highlighted in the report are issues that exist today.
Correct.
So, you know, my concern is how can you help us develop goals and objectives that can help us identify trends going down the road, you know, population trends, development trends, that has us looking at, are the roads as they exist today going to be sufficient 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years? You know, 20 years is far out. But I'm sure you've got some experience in terms of helping us to look at the right stuff, directing us. So when it comes time to do the land use development, the ordinances, we've got the right teeth in there with the right criteria in there to assure that we're planning properly.
And I was hoping it would go one step further, and I've brought this up a couple of times.
Let me just answer that.
It
that
ties
one.
right in, but go
Right.
ahead.
So then, yes, when our planning team come up with what would be a reasonable land development yield or vision, then we go back. It's a feedback loop, and then we'll make, like we said before, policy recommendations for this is what a typical street with this kind of traffic should look like. I mean, traffic volumes. It should have a sidewalk. It should have a green belt. It should provide for drainage and all the utilities that a modern road needs to provide. And so we provide a couple standard cross sections in the master plan that you can refer to. So you say, well, like if a builder comes in and says, what kind of road do I have to build? It's in your ordinance, but it will also be in the master plan circulation element that this is the preferred parking one side, like it's in the residential site improvement standards. It's nothing new, but we would refer to them and augment them as we have to for the specifics of Sparta. I think.
And you're not going to be able to go, you know, 20 years out and with real accuracy, but I think the key is if there's a baseline there, then as part of the reexaminations, it's going to trigger, hey, we better look at this.
Yes.
And forecast out a little better. Now we got clarity and, you know, it's 5 years out. So look at the next 5 years. So, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Doesn't that get factored in when you're doing the master plan? They look at population trends. I mean, you could go back 20 years looking at what our population was when the last master plan was, see what was forecasted and compare the actuals now and kind of make some assumptions to do that as well, correct?
Yeah.
And then you got to take into consideration some of the trends of people moving out. So kind of,
And what's, you know, the surrounding communities around us, you know, we, you know, they could be developing twice at the speed we are, but they're all passing through Sparta on Sparta's roads. So, okay.
But taking
we
that
agree.
one step further too, like what, you know, we were asking for, as I mentioned, the PDRM2 zone, which is down Houses Corner Road, that has a lot of vacant land. And when some of those plots start to sell, what can go in there? What can our roads support? Rather than just like, oh, we're going to have more traffic and how are we fixing it? How do we prevent the traffic? What are the best businesses to have there? How many more semi-trucks can we put on that road? How many more box trucks can we put on that road? How many more dump trucks can we put on that road? And that will help us as we develop that land use element to say, well, this, we don't need, you know, certain size warehouses, or maybe we need a data center, or maybe we need something like that to really figure out where we could go what type of housing? What can we put there that the roads can accommodate right now?
We'll look at that as well.
That's going to be part of like the overall
Well,
vision.
then-
That's what I had.
So as Luke and Lindsay's team develop scenarios for build-out development, like I said, it back feeds into what I'm doing, and then we'll say that, you know, although the vision is to support some sort of X land use, this kind of investment needs to be put into your road infrastructure to make it work.
But if it can't be put in just because of volume and everything else, then we back end it and say, well, these are the only businesses we can support here, right?
So, you know, developers are very creative, and if they need to erase 4 or 5 roads to make it work, we've seen that before.
Erased 4 or 5 roads?
What I'm saying is that if there's a zone, and if there's the development team that has the wherewithal to present their vision that's palatable to a town, the roads are not what determine the development pattern, right? So I can't say to you that because this is the road grid you have, and you have a maximum build out, this is all you can build. Which is
But
what you're,
is the
I think
best
that's what you're
use?
saying.
What is the best use for the properties that we do have? Best use scenario?
Right. So, like I said, I don't know the future to that extent, because you can aggregate property. Like, from what I'm seeing, right, I'm seeing that land in New Jersey is getting so valuable. It's not, like, years ago, if a site was contaminated, no one touched it. Right now, it's just a cost of doing business. So I see that evolving the marketplace. So what I think is something that would inhibit growth, I don't know that. You know, I don't know that, to
I don't
answer
want
your
to
question.
inhibit, but just the right types of growth.
Understood.
This goes back a little, you know, because of the density of the state overall, even though we're rural, you can't just look at Sparta. You really need to look in a more regionalized scenario, to piggyback off what you're saying, Joan. You know, based on what our inventory is today, what's the highest and best use, what our roads can support, we still have to factor in what's going on upstream and/or east-west of us, northwest of us, to see what is impacting us and what they're doing. If that town's growing at a faster rate, they got more development, they're opening up, they're building affordable housing like jackrabbits up there, so be it. It's coming through. We're getting hit with that. So it's the forest through the trees scenario. We got to, I guess, Brian, you look at kind of a radius to support, or at least factor
So
that.
then, to answer your question, yes, because the planning team looks at the other master plans in the area and their zones, and to see what the adjacent yields could be. And we're aware of that in the master plan report.
Okay.
So here's
that's
the
good.
one place I'm going to pull back a little bit. You can't fix everything as part of this master plan. It would be too cost prohibitive. So, you know, I think what we're looking at is help guide us as to where we should be looking and what we should be looking at, but not fixing the problems per se. That could be done off the master plan. That could be done by the township, or, you know, maybe there's some that are so big we want to address it, but you can't fix everything as part of this document. So just help guide us in terms of what should we be looking at, and how can we help use that information for planning?
Correct. In this circulation element, the township did want an element of the nuts and bolts of intersections. Most circulation elements don't have that, but we did do it because it was part of the proposal process.
How many circulation plans have you done in Sussex County?
This is my first,
First for Sussex County.
yes.
Nearby counties?
Bergen, I did a couple.
You were involved with the Meadowlands, that's a regional, right?
Yes, yes.
Don't sell yourself short.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that. I was suggesting that we're a very different animal than the Meadowlands.
Yeah, Brian's a recognized expert in the area. He's been qualified as an expert in transportation. So,
Yeah.
No, we, looking at Sparta, it is a unique township. It really is. and,
I'd
you know.
like to, at this point, give the public the opportunity to comment. Just because of the hour, I am going to ask that if you have a generic, general question, if you can just like keep them as brief as possible. If you have something specific, you can feel free to email me. I will get that information to Brian. I will get that information back from Brian and send it to you. But yeah, I would like to kind of keep things as brief as possible. But if you can limit yourself to comments as opposed to questions, that would be great. But if you do have questions or detailed questions, just please email me and I'll make sure that Brian gets you answers. But feel free to comment. Just understand that this is a draft and that it's a work in progress.
Hi, I'm Beth Broderick. My road failed. I'm on North Shore. Quick question, Ernie, who's not here, alluded to the road changes back at the beginning of 25 years ago. Were the recommendations made from the county considered? Because they address Pine Terrace. And I could do rapid fire questions if you want, because that's what I'm used to. Also, this is more for Mr. Iandola. Do you have a total number of vehicles that were on North Shore and Pine Terrace?
I can do the math, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, because last count I have is from April of 2022. There were 11,074 vehicles on North Shore Trail every 6.5 days.
Okay.
And then, actually, you know what? Because I'm kind of aggravated. Do you know, has Lake Mohawk reached out to you? Is this information going to be sent to Lake Mohawk? And the reason I ask that is I've been in touch with Lake Mohawk, the town, the planning board, and the county. Mr. Zepp said that it was a Lake Mohawk problem, not a Sparta problem. Lake Mohawk is saying that it's Lake Mohawk town and county. I live, and so do other people in this room, live on the worst road included in there, and we're kind of getting shut out. So I'd like to make sure that since we have an opportunity to address address it, that we are, because it touches a county road. And also, how does Title 39 count to this? Because we pay the Township of Sparta to ensure our safety. And to say that it's a Lake Mohawk problem, and I'm not saying that's the intent, but if it's a Lake Mohawk road and a private road, where are we at, since we pay the town to police our roads and keep us safe? And last thing is, just as an aside, Lake Mohawk is about 99 years old, because our centennial is coming up in next year, I think, if that puts time frame in. And Birgit, you touched on this. The roads are private. All but 8 of the 25 miles of road in Lake Mohawk are private roads. There are 8 on the east side, but that does not mean that because it's a private road that Pine Terrace cannot be addressed, because we now have, 8 kids under the age of 10 on our road? There's a bunch of kids. We have a whole lot of seniors. I was at hospital for special surgery today because I almost got run over on my road and now need surgery. So it kind of bothers me when I'm getting bounced all over creation and I hear, well, don't turn off Pine Terrace because all of the roads that are going from 517 up to Woodport Road and CVS are now going to be on the other roads. I can't get out of my road from 2:30 in the afternoon until 6:30 at night because Reverend Brown lets its traffic out. Pope John lets its traffic out at roughly 2:30 to 2:40. Then I get all of the 517 traffic. I cannot turn in or out of my driveway 5 days a week in that time span. That's not fair.
I wasn't suggesting
No,
at
I'm just
all
putting that
that
on-
they shouldn't, that
I know
the
you
club
mentioned
does
don't
need
do
handle
anything to Pine Terrace, and I'll pull the minutes when they're done. But I just want to make sure that the whole board knows that we live on this road. This is not, well, it's a Lake Mohawk problem. That's number one. Number two, it's documented. Is the information going to be sent to Lake Mohawk so that Lake Mohawk can finally be a part of the process?
And what I can tell you is that right now we have a liaison to the town council sitting with us. That liaison to the town council can communicate with the other council members, and the liaison to Lake Mohawk can bring this information to them, and hopefully they will address it in kind. And we can all, this is what I was saying before in terms of being able to sit down together and come up with collective solutions and being able to give us the tools that we need in order to be able
I
to
appreciate it because
get
I have
those.
a list that addresses North Shore, including making Pine Terrace a cul-de-sac. Because, again, that's our home. The other thing to remember too is that Lake Mohawk makes up 40% of Sparta. So I think that this really needs to be addressed from both the town level and from a Lake Mohawk level, instead of saying, well, all but 8 of the roads are Lake Mohawk roads, it's a Lake Mohawk problem. Jim Zepp stood right over here a couple weeks ago and said, well, that's a Lake Mohawk road, that's a Lake Mohawk problem, Sparta's not gonna do anything about it. The now current mayor also said, well, if there's a problem with North Shore, it's not going to be addressed as a one-off, you have to take it to the lake. So I think that we need to make sure that as taxpayers and residents of Sparta, the people in Lake Mohawk, including the people that live on the road that got a big fat F and have 3,200 cars cutting through or going through, I don't want to say cut through, we need to be included in the solution. And if it's the planning board or the town council or somebody needs to step up, be a grown-up, and hold Lake Mohawk accountable. I appreciate what you guys have done. I appreciate that, you know, we have been included in all of this. But we are in a position now where we have documentation that said, hey, we have a problem from North Shore to West Shore. We're looking at West Shore. But who's going to be accountable for addressing it? Is it the police department that has to enforce the 4-ton weight restriction and everything else? Are we looking at enforcing the trespassing that we all know is going on? Because people are going from Newton down North Shore. They don't want to go down South Shore because that's where the Reverend Brown pickup and drop off is on South Shore, and up to CVS. We all know what's going through. We don't have 11,000 cars justifiably that need to be on North Shore every 6.5 days. We don't need the liquor factory and their box truck practically running me over. We don't need the Pepsi truck almost taking the wires out and has trouble maintaining a lane, like a travel lane. Celeste, I sent you the video so you know that I'm not making it up. But if we could please address this and.
I have a quick question. What's the goal after tonight? Is this is a preliminary draft document, right?
Correct.
This is not going on any websites, or is it being released? I mean, it's being recorded, it's being presented in a public meeting here, so.
It's being presented in a draft form to get additional information, which Brian is collecting, and Luke is taking advanced notes, and that'll be incorporated once the master plan in its entirety is brought to a public
And I will
hearing.
take it back to town council and the liaison to Lake Mohawk. I think Brian touched upon this earlier. This is going to be
I
a
know it's a
larger
big undertaking.
collaboration with
One last-
state, county, township,
I'd
Lake
rather,
Mohawk,
I'm
all
glad the
those
time is going
ownerships.
into it because I don't know if you've been around for all of it, but Rob and I have been at this for over 6 years with trying to get traffic addressed. One last question I have, and I don't know if this is possible or not based on the technology. With the cars that are going onto North Shore, are you able to see, are they just going from Sparta Avenue to somewhere else in Sparta, or are they staying within Lake Mohawk? Because that's going to determine if it's a cut-through situation or if it's somebody that has legitimate business in Lake Mohawk.
So I don't know about legitimacy, but I can say that I can determine what cars are local based and what are pass-through based, like we talked about Route 15, and I could run that analysis.
Okay, the reason I ask again is if somebody's coming from Andover and going to Crow's for dinner, I can't stop it. But if they're going from Andover over to Burger and Butcher and they don't live in Lake Mohawk, that's a cut-through situation, and that's something that Lake Mohawk would have to address.
Yeah, we can get that information.
And to go just a little bit further, can you break it out by trucks versus cars?
Don't know, but I'll find out.
Because then we can, I don't know, maybe there should be like limits on no trucks.
Well, there's a 4-ton weight restriction for
Well, maybe there
vehicles.
should just be no trucks.
I
mean,
would
there
be
are
on
other
board with that.
options too.
I would be on board with that if they don't
many there are.
have business in Lake Mohawk, they shouldn't be on the roads on the west side of the lake.
They're supposed to be coming in the back gate, so maybe the data will help to drive that decision-making.
I'd be on board with that.
Beth
I'll email
mentioned-
you the rest of my stuff because you know I could be up here all night.
Yes, I appreciate it in case anybody else wants to speak.
Rob Otto, North Shore Trail. So I'll try to be quick. Just a few things when you're looking at the traffic info. I've gone through different options for North Shore Trail, Upper Lake. Upper Lake is the lake between North Shore Trail and South Shore Trail with Newton Sparta Road that runs along it. So one of the ideas I had heard is to make North Shore Trail one way, South Shore Trail one way. I also had a neighbor that was going to give land away to increase sight lines, but then an engineer said that's a terrible idea because it'll embolden traffic to go faster on the road. So I think the one way and the improving sight lines is probably a good thing to consider if you are going to take some time to consider this, because it could probably get a lot worse. It's pretty bad now, but it could get a lot worse. And yes, even I've almost been hit on that road numerous times, but I don't have a solution. The other thing that I just want to put on the record is a prior Sparta PD chief, I believe, had said that Pine Terrace, because there was a discussion about gating North Shore Trail and South Shore Trail is basically the point, to break the traffic pattern from North Shore Trail, Upper Lake, through White Deer Plaza, which is also privately owned by the HOA. And that would work, but then I guess it's disallowed because of, probably, Ernie, you would know better, Newton Sparta Road, the road adjacent to it, you can't cut off the flow of traffic, but then it was pointed out, you have Pine Terrace in between North Shore Trail, but then as Birgit brought up, but then you have North Shore Trail going straight forward.
It was probably an issue with queuing of vehicles at a gate, you know, and having them back up onto
Yeah.
517. Maybe that was what the issue was. I don't know. I wasn't involved.
So I know that the school mentioned Reverend Brown. There's a lot of queuing up all the way to West Shore Trail on South Shore Trail. It is what it is. And then the other thing, just as the traffic experts looking at this, we're not sewer, we're a septic community. So if we were to, going to Mr. Sylvester's point, I don't think anyone's going to be in favor of deeding the road over and making it public, even though I don't think Sparta would want it. It's substandard all along the majority of its route. I've measured the width on South Shore Trail all along it, and North Shore Trail and Pine Terrace. It's substandard, so you would need to widen it, but then you would cut into people's front yards and their septic fields. So I think it's a non-starter.
And increasing speeds.
Yeah, and what would that do? So, I mean, yeah, I just want to get that on the record so that you don't spin your wheels thinking that we have sewer systems or anything. We don't have that technology.
Can I try something just as a follow-up to that? And I'll try to be brief, so on this one. It's just, again, looking at the master plan, I'm not sure the master plan and the budget to support it gives us the means to go fix these issues.
No.
Now, when I look at the existing master plan, it talks about problems that we had, such as vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, line of sight issues. And one of the goals was to look at these on a periodic basis and make recommendations. And I think the thing, the roads and the places you're saying, they're good recommendations, but I don't think the expectations to be that this master plan is going to fix that problem.
Very good point.
Excuse me, my name is Florence Slack, and I live on the intersection of Pine Cone and Hunter's Lane. And I don't know if anybody's really considered that section, but where I live right now, it's like a connecting road between Stanhope and Woodport Road. It's a very busy road because I guess it's a main connecting road between Stanhope and Woodport. but we get lots of construction trucks. We get everything. Construction trucks, all kinds of trucks in general, cars, motorcycles, school buses, but it just seems to have a lot of traffic for one road. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done with that, but I'm just throwing it out there that it's a very, very busy road. So just consider it if you're doing a plan of any kind. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kathy Ebbinghausen. Sparta. No. Don't mind the peanut gallery, right? So I want to thank you, Mr. Day, for pointing out how the master plan is more bigger picture, right? I hear a lot of discussion today about very specific issues. And I would hope to see what's being discussed here become part of the goals that are included where we're considering building as and development as a bigger picture, defending and protecting our town against developments that would cause level of service to degrade to the point where our town is not transversable, right? How does this data support those goals? That's what I'm missing here in this discussion today. And maybe it's because that isn't really ready yet, right? But I didn't come here thinking today would be so granular. So I'm glad to hear that there'll be additional discussion about how this plays into the goals for the master plan. When is that expected to happen, where this data gets turned into more goals around traffic, as Mr. Day, you pointed out?
Excuse me. The way that the timeline has been put together is that each element that we're working on is going to get presented on high level and discussed. Then the master plan in its entirety in draft will come out and we'll have a hearing on that. And once that happens, you'll see a more cohesive product where the connectivity is between, as Joan was mentioning before, in terms of what the land use looks like versus circulation versus sustainability and how all of that goes together. Right now for Mr. Intandola, this is for his particular element as much information gathering as it is providing preliminary results from the data that's been collected so far, right?
Okay.
So this is, it's granular because this is the nuts and bolts. This is the foundation of what we're looking at so that we can build up from here and say, okay, we've got a higher level of sightline issues than we do of transportation issues. So let's focus on, this particular goal and objective, and this is how you can, fix those areas. I mean, Mr. Intandola, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my understanding of the intent.
Right, so to reflect what the chairwoman has said, that the more macro look will be reflected when we get the other parts of the master plan together, particularly the land use element, then it back feeds into the circulation element, and then we can make those policy recommendations that reflects the vision of the land use element in the general master plan.
Is that expected this year?
Yes.
The other thing I think it's important when we look at all these problem areas and, potential problem areas, is that as we have development, sometimes we have an ability to fix those within the development. To me, the best example is 20 years ago, Sparta Avenue was horrendous to try and travel between the post office intersection and up where the Grand Union used to be. It was a lot of traffic. But then the bypass came in and we built Town Center Drive and and that development there was made to have a connecting road between the two. That, I just think about the times we've had problems with the Route 15 bridge, where we could detour instead of having the complete, all of Main Street closed and, or not even having a way to get there. You'd have to go, if the bypass wasn't there, you'd have to go East Mountain Road, down Glen Road, so when we see there's problem areas, if we see development where we can put more connector roads in that aren't through residential areas, they're through commercial areas, that's better. You know, so that, I think that's a part of why we look at the problems and see if, you know, in the future, we can solve them within the approval process.
And I assume those corrections, if you will, were made because there was a higher level goal in play that said something to the effect that you just described. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the process, part of the, you know, if we can identify problem areas, we can keep them in mind going forward when we get developments, you know, and say, you know, all right, we're not gonna let you just build into here. We're gonna have you're gonna have to connect to another road too. And we'll give better circulation.
And I also want to add to that the master plan, even if it tried to address all these problems, does not solve these problems, right? What solves these problems are putting ordinances in place and having the you know, the council weigh in on certain things and put together programs and put forward financing to put in the fixes that are required. So even though we are, you know, we're pinpointing and we're looking at strategies, we're advising the council of what needs to be done, and we're counting on them to carry the football across the line.
Sure, I understand what the work that's being done here isn't ordinances, but I would hope that the goals that are uncovered here, relayed here, do help shape those ordinances. And to Mr. Day's point, it has to be enough to be able to give it teeth in an ordinance,
That's
right?
the intention.
Yeah, we're going to have to break it down into short-term goals, maybe 1 to 3 year, 3 to 5 year, and start to prioritize what needs to be done, because it all can't be done at the same time. But I wanted to bring one other thing up, and that is that the circulation element is not a required element for a master plan, but we chose to do it because we know it is an issue here. So we contracted and spent the money to have that piece done, but then we went further to do the vision piece of it so that we can look at the future and tie it back into the land use. And then we went further and said, let's do 8 intersections or whatever rather than the 4. So not required, but we are taking it seriously and looking at it and try to expand it as much as we can.
And that's great. And because of all that extra effort, I'm hoping that something tangible,
Yeah.
actionable, to your point about it being an issue,
Land use,
actually
like,
comes
tie-in.
out of it,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to just saying, oh, we did a little extra data collection, but then nothing is changing.
Right. That's why I
Right,
was saying I want
so-
to see the recommendations for the best uses.
Right. Mr. Antondola, you mentioned that 10 nodes were surveyed, and Ms. Furman, you just recalled that as well. But the level of service was not calculated for 5 of them. I find it strange that we wouldn't calculate level of service at places where there's traffic lights, because maybe in a data perspective, right, when you're analyzing it, it makes sense that, you know, if it's on a timer, it should be okay. But Mr. Sylvester, as you pointed out, it's mostly not, right? So that actually becomes a factor if most of the time, as you mentioned, it's not timed properly. So when you don't have a level of service for those lights, you're actually cutting out a big piece of data, in my opinion, because those level of service could be D or F, but they're not recalled here. They're not mentioned here. Just because the fact that there's a light at an intersection shouldn't give it a pass, in my opinion, right? Because you're missing that piece of it. You're just assuming, oh, it's got a light, oh, maybe it's an A or B. Like, that's not, I don't think that's a fair assumption or assessment.
That's not how I characterized it, that I was assuming that it was A or B. What I said.
No,
in the
that's my
record- no, well,
characterization.
Well, you're purporting that I said that, and I did not say that. What I did say is that we didn't do the levels of service at the signalized intersections because we believe that if there are issues at a traffic signal, most of the times it is because it's out of sync, because of power failure and whatnot. And that is what we presented on the record.
And I assume that assumption I'm suggesting is flawed.
And that is your opinion, and I appreciate it.
Show the data is all I'm asking. If that's your assumption, show the data. The data will prove it out. If the level of service is great, then great. But show the data so everybody can see that, is my point.
That was our position, that we know that the signals should be designed or fairly recent on those runs. And if the timing is as planned, they should be operating as planned.
But should is not reality. Should is an assertion. Should isn't data, right? Should is just that. You're asserting it should. Well, if you have all this great data here, show the data for those intersections as well, as my request.
I guess as Chris Quinn pointed out, there's no arrow turning on from 517. So like if you looked at the timing for that, I'm sure we've all sat there for several lights, and maybe that kind of information would pop up when you're looking at it and make a recommendation to put in an arrow.
We want the full picture. That's right. Agree. All right. Sorry, I have a bunch of notes here. I just want to run through. You had mentioned, Mr. Antendola, about state, I would say crash data that was mentioned previously. How does that align to the report that Sparta Chief McCarrick published in terms of the Sparta Police Department? Are you aware of that report?
I think we looked at it and we had, I think the data we got was up through to 2025, so it was more recent. But we can look at that as well. I do not. look
You
at it
included
specifically.
that data as well? You have
No,
that
we
report?
use the data that is recorded by the state police system, which is also fed here, like the traffic reports that, the crash reports that are generated here make their way to the state Safety Voyager database. There's
Okay,
a lot of commonality in the reports.
So you're assuming they're aligned, is that?
Yeah, I
correct?
mean, that's a fair assumption. If the reporting is the same, sometimes like a parking lot fender bender, at the Stop and Shop may not be reported, in the state system. It's because it's below the threshold or they don't want to report it, but it doesn't account for that.
I only asked because when you talked about North Village, it felt like the amount of crash data you reported felt low to me based on what I thought I heard previously. So I would just ask that that be included as well, if it hasn't been already. I want to touch on again what Birgit mentioned, that your report doesn't seem to touch on pass-through data. Right? I'm not sure why your report is only focused on people who live in Sparta, right? From the data perspective, what you presented tonight was, okay, it's within the township, but you're only focused, it seems, on people who originate in the township and return to the township. Again, I would ask that. I think that's a fair, I think you're missing a lot of data there, which would affect level of service, would affect traffic counts, things like that. If you're only, limiting your data to folks that are living in Sparta.
No, that, just to correct that, the traffic data reflects globally. It doesn't matter where you're from. It was like when we did where people work that originate from Sparta, that is Sparta data. So that it doesn't subtract from the overall traffic volumes that we're reporting, because that is an entirely different data set.
Okay, so then what was the purpose of focusing on folks that are originating in Sparta?
We just want to see where the work patterns are from Sparta to work, and that's
How is that
typical.
relevant to
It's-
your data?
It's relevant for figuring out pathways to work, whether there's a need for more mass transit, things of that nature. So I believe it's relevant in pretty much most master plan circulation elements I've seen. The journey to work data is addressed, or at least put in topically.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, seeing none.
We have a lot more work to do.
Yes, we know. We know there is work to do, but thank
It is
you.
good, very good
Thank you,
start.
Brian.
Yeah.
Appreciate
great
all
job.
the.
I appreciate your
Appreciate the
time,
effort.
and
We appreciate the
Thank you very much.
presentation and the time.
I really do. You guys are volunteers, and I appreciate you spending the evening with me.
Dave, did you have any comments? He's been sitting there so quietly.
That's all right. I just have two things. Number one, I live up in Wantage, and if you go to Middletown, they do have a couple roundabouts that they've constructed recently. If you wanted to experience one, going up towards the mall in that area. And number two, I probably should get this over to Brian, if it's all right with the board. Probably about 35, 40 years ago, Harold Pello worked on some plans on Route 15 to extend it from where the 4 lanes end now northwards towards Lafayette and going all the way to Tuttle's Corner over in Sandiston. So I'd be happy to share that information with you. It might be helpful just to see what some of the thought processes were at that time. So I can get
Appreciate
that
that.
for you.
That'd be great. Thank
That'd be
you.
great.
All right.
All right. Thank you again, Brian.
Okay, thank you for your time, board. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to move forward with updates. I'm going to start with Town Council. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, very briefly, we are looking at the Class 2 position being filled on not the upcoming council meeting, but the following one, which I think is earmarked March, give me a second, March 10th meeting. So hopefully we'll have some good news and that position will be filled. And I will just make note, I will carry this information to council, to the Lake Mohawk liaison as well. All right? Nothing else to report.
But we did have one other thing under board business that you just brought up, and that is about the alternate voting that needed to come back and a decision be made today.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to give a decision today because I don't want to speculate, to be candid with you. Hopefully, the Class 2 position will be filled. Let's say it's not filled and we have a hearing and the vote is 8-0. It's a mute issue. Again, I don't want to speculate as to the opinion one way or the other, but if it is a 4-4 vote, I will give my opinion at that time. Again, I don't want to speculate as to where we are.
What do you mean by speculation? We have 8 board members here, 8 regular board members. We have a quorum, correct?
I am not judge and jury. I am your counsel to the board.
So what is your
If
best
I-
advice?
My best advice is let's go day by day. Let's see if the applicant is an issue or not. It could be a moot issue. And therefore, there are other opinions that were made by the borough attorney, the township attorney, consulting with the Board of Adjustment attorney, myself. So those opinions, as far as administrative roles, Sparta's ordinance, that the alternates have been permitted to vote in the past. That's a past practice, so we're continuing with that. As far as the Municipal Land Use Act and an applicant comes forward, let's say I'm representing a developer and the board attorney would say, we have 8 members, we're short 1. Do you want to go forward? Or do you want the alternate to be able to vote? Now, the problem with that analysis is someone in the public could still object, saying the Municipal Land Use Act and that Mercer case that was brought to our attention. So if it was a law school exam, it's a great question. The A answer is what everyone's identifying. I'm just not in a position right now. I'm more in the professor position, saying that I see the issue, I understand the issue, I acknowledge the issue, but there's no need for me to give an opinion that could be challenged as speculative. If there are facts before us of which a ruling needs to be made, I will make that ruling. Hopefully, I don't have to make the ruling because the Class 2 member will be appointed. That's my opinion.
So, Mr. Porro, if I can, I don't know when the next applicant is coming in front of us. I don't know if it'll be before or after the appointment. I just want to say that if we do get there without an appointment, and sounds like that's a low risk right now, we're going to need to really look to you for guidance on this. And you
I
can
am
defer to the
fully,
others,
I
but we're
am
gonna need
fully
to look to you.
prepared.
Okay.
I just don't want to speculate at this time.
All right, thank you.
And to answer your question, Ron, right now, we have 2 applications that are still in the completeness process. One is anticipated to be complete on the 2nd. The second one is on the 9th. Of March. So the earliest that we're going to get something is going to be that second meeting
Perfect.
in March.
Sounds like the cycle's going to work great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to the Environmental Commission update. Ms. Dunbar.
Yes, thank you. So I was not present at this meeting. However, I would like to convey that we are still working on a Sustainable Jersey grant, and this is for the Environmental Resource Inventory. This also, like the circulation plan, is not required, but it is highly recommended to be a part of the master plan. And it acts, as I mentioned before, as a foundation for crucial legal, defensible land use decisions, especially in New Jersey. And it's data-driven. So we're hoping to get funding for that. Okay, and then we're working on finding a good model for a data center ordinance for Sparta. We're still working on that. And we are concerned about, of course, the Sparta wild management plan on Sparta Mountain, the wildlife management plan. And we feel that it needs to be drastically improved. And as we heard from our speakers, Dr. Wander and Dr. DeVito, just recently last year, there's just so much damage to the area with the water and the wildlife from the logging operation that's going on there. So that was a new concern that that they revisited at the last meeting, from what I understand. Yeah. You're welcome.
Quick question. Any update on Earth Day?
Well, we are going forward with the Earth Day, and it will be on the 25th of April. It's planned for, I think, 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock after the cleanup, which is earlier in the morning, which kind of presents an unfortunate dilemma for the members of the Environmental Commission, because we wanted to participate in the cleanup, but we will be here trying to set that up and organize the tables and everything. So then maybe we'll have a fall cleanup, instead. But yes, we're moving forward, and we have the permissions for having our event out in front of the municipal building.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to subcommittee updates. I will start with Master Plan Subcommittee. This evening's meeting actually went reasonably well. We only had one application for a new tenant and sign that was approved. We're still in the process of putting together our format in terms of putting together memos and how we memorialize this information. Trying to take some of what was done prior to COVID and some of the new things that have been put together by the previous subcommittee. But that's a work in progress, and I'm sure we'll get there. Moving on to Master Plan Subcommittee. The subcommittee had its meeting, excuse me, and the focus was a presentation, the initial presentation from Mr. Intandola on the traffic, on the circulation element, where the subcommittee was capable of weighing in on that scenario. Also, there's been some conversation that's been ongoing in the last few subcommittee meetings regarding how and when data can and should be presented to the board. And I kind of wanted to open it up to the board for that kind of discussion. The thought process there, I mean, there are two schools of thought, and I can understand both. One being there may not always be an opportunity to get something on the board's agenda effectively, which may stymie the timeline for the master plan, so I can understand that. So a thought process might be to provide all of the data to, to the board in one lump sum toward the end as the subcommittee is completing its processes. The other school of thought is that we continue on the process that we're in right now, where we take that high-level information, do a high-level presentation, get the board's opinion, so that when the draft is complete, it's a little bit more digestible, it's a little bit easier to move through, instead of trying to kind of pull all of the data in together at one shot. So what I would like to do is kind of start with Birgit, if you don't mind, and just have you weigh in on your thoughts on that particular subject.
Well, given how much discussion one short segment that wasn't even required, generated, and there's a lot of expertise on this panel. People look at things differently. People think about things differently. I could not imagine having that same level of discussion or the same quality of discussion if I was just handed a big document all at once. I would just find that overwhelming to digest.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Kind of feel the same way. If the board felt like we want to see the whole document as one piece, I'm okay with that as well. But when that presentation comes, how, what is it going to be? Multiple meetings? So I get both schools of thoughts.
So my thought is, I think it's important that we get the updates for a lot of reasons. Some that as Birgit mentioned, but also, again, this master plan is costing a lot of money. We don't want to get down to the end and have a disconnect between the subcommittee, and I don't expect there will be, but between the subcommittee and the board, because then we just wasted a whole lot of money. So I think having in-process reviews to the extent possible, I think would be very helpful for everybody.
I agree, and I'm not going to restate that. I agree with both Birgit and Ron on those very same reasons. I don't want to look at 3,000-page document. I'd rather see it as it comes and weigh in.
Yeah, agreed. For all the same reasons.
Agreed.
Agreed, but I'd also like to hear what the public might feel about this. It's a lot to digest, even today, the details, right? Just from this one segment. So, and as time passes, your memory, dwindles. So, so I think we need to take it piece by piece and consider it carefully. Yeah.
I think the scenario you presented, I know you weren't at the last subcommittee meeting, but I think it was not the way you're presenting it, because we did say we had no issues going forward with presenting pieces at a time that are data-driven, like the circulation, like the population, like the land use. What we had issues with, and we voted on, was that we didn't want to send out the goals and objectives prematurely. And that should wait till the end, because we're going to be developing pieces, but we're still going to be getting new information. So you might develop a piece on circulation, but then something else is going to come out later with the land use that you're going to have to tie together. And we did not want to do the goals and objectives until they were completed. And so I still stand by that.
No, I understand that. I mean, in terms of what's being presented when, we were in agreement that goals and objectives were likely going to be last, because that's data-driven. Whether that, but what would be thought of in the confines of each element were goals and objectives related to that element, right?
I didn't quite understand that, but
So-
what we don't want to
so
do is goals and objectives for
what
this
Lindsay-
element
right, but
piecemeal.
Right, what Lindsay had originally put together for us, right? Obviously, Brian is a different planner. What Lindsay had described for us, that was that if she were going to put together the land use element for presentation, she would have goals and objectives that were specific to land use available for us, not the overarching goals and objectives of the entirety of the document, because those have to be driven by the data that's in the element, which puts together the goals and objectives for the element, which feeds into the overarching goals and objectives for the entirety of the town. That is the way Lindsay had explained it to us. But one way or another, really, that's not the topic for discussion in terms of
Well, no.
how that happens. The topic for discussion right now is, are we going to digest this in segments, or are we going to digest this as an entire entity? And I think what I've heard from the board, majority, is that we're looking to do this in segments. But
But
to,
that's
And
what
I-
we
and I-
said, but.
I'm sorry, Joan. I just think, I just want to add, I mean, each of these segments are going to have these type of conversations,
Yeah.
right? And then you're gonna have conflicts, you're gonna have data gaps, and this thing's gonna be a living document that's gonna be built, right? And getting the public's feedback throughout the stages, I think, is really beneficial to
Yeah.
everybody.
I'm not disagreeing
And
with that.
there's great transparency here. One of the best things that I think we could have, whether we agree or disagree on numbers and stats, at least there's collaboration here. To your point, if we got a 3,000-page document and everybody was going left, right, sideways on this, you just wasted all the money, to Ron's earlier.
But that was not the issue. The issue was.
The goals.
As,
The final
as
goals.
Celeste just said, when we finish land use, we'll do land use goals. But keep in mind, we haven't heard the climate change element yet, so that's going to end up changing them.
Everybody's gonna
And
have
that's
a
why
targeted
we wanna
list of
wait,
goals, right?
And we voted as a group to wait for the goals to be at the end. But yes, to hear all of the demographics, to hear the land use, to hear the circulation, all the things we're doing, that, yes, come here so you don't have to look at it at once. But
Yeah.
everything's going to change. And some of the subcommittee members said, I didn't sign up for this. I'm a volunteer and I don't want to go back 5 times changing things. Let's just do it at once and hear the goals and objectives, at once. That was the thought process there.
I don't think you could set goals and objectives without information and at least
Correct.
data,
exactly, that's
correct?
why we all agreed that
So,
goals and objectives
There
would
may
be the last
be
segment.
goals of one group may be conflicted out by the other 5 or 6 segments.
Correct.
Exactly.
So I think,
And that's all we were saying. So I don't think it was ever an issue of not looking at this other data.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yes, I think we are all finally agreeing on the same thing. And also, one last thing in terms of process, right? Ron, I think you and I have discussed this in terms of agreement, right? Was so when the subcommittee, the subcommittee's job is to do the heavy lift, is to look at the data, compile the data, do the work, do the legwork that the board doesn't really have the opportunity to do. But what I would like to continue to do is bring matters of process, matters of procedure, matters of that define how this continues to move forward to the board for the board's opinion, because at the end of the day, this is a board document and requires board input, which is what I'm going to continue to do, and I will convey that back to the subcommittee, because I understand that subcommittee voting is a thought process, but really it's more of a consensus rather than, okay, we voted, now it's law. Really what happens in terms of process happens here with all of us together, because it's a board document. But I just wanted to get that on the record as well. So moving forward, we are now to the portion which is open to the public for comments and matters not on the agenda and matters not related to a hearing or an application. Yes. Because the next thing is adjournment. So if no one steps up to that microphone. Okay. Seeing no one. Ernie, you're on.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank